that we'll be covering until the end of the semester are going to be the bulk of your exams that you will be doing in radiology. And I know you've heard the students saying over and over again that most of the procedures that they do are chest x-rays. Chest x-rays are done for everything. They're done as a routine, they're done as preoperative, preoperative mechanism. So when people go in to have surgery done, basic routine orders are for a chest x-ray, lab, and EKG. So chest x-rays are always part of some kind of routine. The abdomen is going to be the next that we'll be covering, and then also the ribs or thoracic cavity. So again, this is going to be a bulk of the procedures that we're going to be doing here. You guys recognize Abraham Lincoln? Okay. I think that's Ken Bontrager, the author of the textbook himself, but I think he passed away, I think 2 or 3 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, about 2 or 3 years ago. Yeah. So that's him. And we used to, as technologists, you guys are lucky because you guys got the scrubs. We used to, as students, I used to wear slacks, a dress shirt, and lab coat, and a tie. We were forced to wear ties.
That's nice. Yeah, but that's nice.
But I mean, the type of work that we're doing is it can be very physical, and so you start to sweat in your clothing. The females wore. What's that?
Pencil skirts.
What's a pencil skirt?
Tight skirt.
What?
A what?
It's like a tight skirt.
Silhouette skirts.
Oh.
He's like, no, but I wish they did.
He's like, you need to tell my girlfriend to get some of those.
Okay, I might change the dress policy.
That's going in the suggestion box.
Yeah, but the females wore, well, it was a little bit more different for the females. They had to wear white slacks, which was see-through. Most times it was see-through, and white lab coat or smock. Yeah. But that's the way we used to dress.
Women had to wear white.
They had to wear white. Yes, yeah. It's
We need to
bad.
get rid of that.
It's bad, yeah. Okay. So again, we'll talk about the chest anatomy for today. So the chest is broken up into 3 different divisions. We've got the bony thorax, which provides a protective framework, the respiratory system, and then the mediastinum. How do you guys say it? Mediastinum or mediastinum?
No, mediastinum.
How was it, Evelyn? How do you say it?
Mediastinum.
Okay,
Mediastinum.
there you go.
Has anyone ever, do you ever say mediastinum?
I've never heard
Never heard that?
My professor used that.
Your old professor used to say that? Okay, yeah.
I just said
A lot of the doctors that I work with use mediastinum or mediastinum instead of mediastinum, right? Did we have the discussion about acetabulum?
Yeah.
And
What's the other way to
sciatic-
pronounce it?
Sciatic versus sciatic?
Sciatic versus sciatic.
Sciatic.
Acetabulum, what was the other pronunciation?
That's the
I
only
can't
one.
even, I don't even want to say.
No, say it, because we were talking about it yesterday.
Acetabulum.
Acetabellum.
Acetabellum.
Acetabellum. Has anybody said it that way?
No, never heard
I hope not.
Oh, you're the first.
That's how you say that? And you're giving
No,
him
that's not the first time I've heard it. I've heard it before.
and you're giving him crap about
I
sciatic.
heard my professor say it that way though.
Well,
That's the
I
name
say
of
it
a
that
group,
way.
right?
Shannon, you're
Lady
lying.
Antebellum.
Lady Antebellum.
Okay.
Close.
All right. Bony thorax. Okay, the bony thorax. So we're going to cover the 3 divisions. The first one here is the bony thorax, comprised of the sternum. Did we cover the sternum yet?
No.
No, we didn't. Okay. So it is comprised of the sternum, 12 pairs of ribs, and I don't know why it's not included, but it also, you need to write this down somewhere, it also includes the clavicle and the scapula. So sternum, 12 pairs of ribs, clavicle, and the scapula comprises the bony thorax. I don't know if it was blocked off, and it said that before, but it got blocked off. Okay. Okay, let's keep on going. Positioning landmarks of the chest. So the bony landmarks that we palpate in doing chest x-rays, there are 2 main bony landmarks. The first one here is the vertebral prominence of C7. Vertebral prominence of C7. So if you put your hand on the back of your neck, okay, you don't feel the bone, you just feel neck muscles until you feel that first bony projection. Okay, that's the vertebral prominence. When they say vertebral prominence, they're talking about the spinal, I'm sorry, can't even think of the word now.
Spinous process.
Spinous process. It's the spinous process of C7, thank you. Spinous process. Now, when we're taking a chest X-ray, we want to be in the mid-thorax. So mid-thorax is going to be approximately 7 to 8 inches below the vertebral prominence when you're palpating for that bony landmark. Now, if we were doing an anterior, an AP projection, the bony landmark that we're going to use there is the sternal or the jugular notch. And to get into the level of T7, which is mid-thorax, it's going to be approximately 3 to 4 inches below the notch. Okay? And then the last landmark here is the xiphoid tip. We don't use it much for many of the positions, but it is a bony landmark, and that's located at the level of T9, T10. Now, we'll talk about this again later on, is how do I find T7 by palpating those bony landmarks? Well, the first one here is if you're doing PA and you're feeling for the vertebral prominence, you put your thumb on the prominence and extend your fingers like so.
Shaka.
Okay, shaka bra. Okay, this is shaka bra. So you put your thumb on the vertebral prominence and you extend it, and from the distance from your thumb to your pinky on an average size hand is about 6 to 7 inches. Yeah, Alex is looking at his hand.
Like, not me, dog.
No, that's not gonna work.
He's like,
Average.
I'm seeing the abdomen right here, bro.
Average size. Yeah. And then, okay, again, this is average. And then from the sternal notch, 3 to 4 inches below the sternal notch, is the width of your fist. Alex, let's forget about you. Okay? It's the
You know by a tape measure, dude.
Yeah, it's the width of your fist. And that takes you at the level of T7. Okay? All right. So let's continue. Respiratory system. The respiratory system, the purpose of that is to exchange gas between air and blood. So you're breathing in oxygen. Your blood gets oxygenated. It nourishes your vital tissues and organs, and it goes back into your heart and into your lungs to get oxygenated again. And that's where the gas exchange between oxygen and carbon dioxide. There are 4 divisions to the respiratory system. They include the pharynx, which is going to be broken down into 3 different divisions: the trachea, the bronchi, and then the lungs. Right below the lungs is where you're going to find that muscle, is the diaphragm that separates your thoracic cavity from the abdominal cavity. The diaphragm also helps in respiration. Now, you have to be familiar with the relationship between the trachea is your windpipe, the trachea and the esophagus. The trachea is going to be anterior to the esophagus, and again, this is telltaling when we're looking at a radiograph of the neck or of the chest. So we can see the relationship between those 2 anatomical structures. The pharynx is broken into 3 different divisions. You have the nasopharynx, the oropharynx, and the laryngopharynx. The fancy, these are all fancy terms, but when we're referring to the pharynx, it's basically, in layman's term, is your throat. Okay, so that's your throat. The first part is the nasopharynx, which is this area right here. Okay, it's the upper pharynx. And then the oropharynx is related to the oral part, or the mouth, and then the laryngopharynx is related to the larynx. Now, the pharynx is, how do I say this? It is responsible, the area is responsible for respiration as well as eating and drinking. Okay, so it's a common site of breathing, eating, and drinking. But here's the wrench, the however. So the oral and laryngopharynx are the ones that are involved with the digestive system, whereas the nasopharynx is not. The nasopharynx is only related to respiration, whereas oral and laryngo is related to respiration and your digestive system. Okay, questions? Again, this should just be a review, guys, right? All right. Kristen Lupo, what are you sending me?
Huh?
I
For that, to see that, yeah.
Yeah, you meant to see, okay.
It's an extra.
Okay. Extra credit, what?
Oh, that too. No,
Okay.
no.
All right, so let's begin with the oral cavity. The roof of your mouth, is made up of a very hard bone. That's your hard palate. And the back of that is your soft palate. The uvula. Okay, the uvula is an extension of the hard palate, and that's usually the area in which the oral pharynx begins. Okay, so the area of the uvula is generally where the oral. What did I say? Did I say uvula?
Uvula.
Sorry, that's the way I say it. The uvula is the extension of the soft palate.
Wait, you said hard palate first.
Well, it's a soft palate. The uvula is the extension of the soft palate. Did I say hard palate?
Mhm.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And that's generally the area where the oral pharynx begins. All right. Then we have the epiglottis. What is the epiglottis? It's a flap. Flap for what?
Covers.
Food from your pipe.
Okay, so it's the gatekeeper, right? To
Mhm.
make sure that no substances enters the windpipe. So when you swallow, when you're eating or drinking, it's going through your trachea. Okay, so and if any substances does make its way down the trachea, what is that called?
Aspiration.
What is it called?
Aspiration.
It's called aspiration. Okay, so this prevents aspiration. Okay. Then we have an important bone here. It's the hyoid bone. The hyoid bone is what anchors the tongue. It anchors the tongue in the mouth and the throat. Okay, so it attaches to the hyoid bone. And then we have the thyroid cartilage of the larynx, also known as the Adam's apple. And then we have the thyroid gland. Thyroid gland, also found in the neck. What do we know about the thyroid gland?
Sensitive.
Radio what?
Radio
Yes,
sensitive.
it's radiation sensitive, radio sensitive because it's highly vascular. So we, as technologists, not only should you be wearing a lead apron during fluoroscopic study, but you should also be wearing a thyroid shield to protect yourself from radiation. Okay, what else should you be protecting during fluoroscopy?
Your eyes.
Your eyes.
Your eyes, because your eyes are also sensitive to
close
radiation. You just close them. Turn the
Push
other
the
way.
button and close your eyes.
Yeah. All right, so the larynx. The larynx is your voice box. We already know what A is. What's A?
Hyoid.
Hyoid bone. Okay, again, that's what anchors the tongue. Then we have the thyroid cartilage. B, but the most prominent part of the thyroid cartilage is the laryngeal prominence. And then right below that, the very first segment is the cricoid cartilage, which is the first segment of the trachea.
I laugh because it's quite quick.
Quick.
Cricoid?
Man, they're just making fun of you.
We're
for
just,
that.
yeah, we're making stuff up now. It's okay. That's right. Okay, so we already know this. What's the purpose of the epiglottis? Okay, so we have the hyoid bone, we got the epiglottis, we have the thyroid cartilage of the larynx, cricoid cartilage, all demonstrated on the lateral view. Right at the opening of the laryngopharynx, or I'm sorry, the trachea is the true vocal cords. Okay. In order for us to produce sound, air needs to go through the trachea, right? Now, have you guys ever thought about this? When speaking or when making sounds, you're breathing out. Okay, have you ever tried to talk breathing in? Can't do it. Yeah. Can't even do it. So it only happens as you're breathing out. Okay. Laryngeal prominence is at the level of C5. Okay, highlight that. The prominence is at the level of C5. This is going to be important when we are taking x-rays of the neck. I'm not talking about C-spine, I'm talking about of the neck. All right. The cricoid, again, another important level here is going to be at the level of C6. This is generally where the trachea begins. It's at the level of C6. And then we got the different structures surrounding the trachea. So I think this is a little bit more than what you guys have. This is basically just right out of the book. So the thyroid gland. The thyroid gland, as we said, is highly vascular, highly radiosensitive. It is responsible for growth, development, and other metabolic functions. Then you have these small glands within the thyroid, that's your parathyroid glands, responsible for blood functions. And then your thymus, which is located underneath the thyroid, boosts the immune system. It's generally enlarged in children because they're building their immunity. Is the thymus. Now, the thymus itself is going to be part of the mediastinum structures. Okay, so we have the thyroid and the parathyroid at the level of C6. Then we have where the trachea breaks into two bronchi. So it breaks up into the right bronchus and the left bronchus at the level of T4 to T5. T4 to T5. This area in which the trachea breaks into the two main segments, right and left bronchus, this area right here where it starts to bifurcate, this is known as the carina. C-A-R-I-N-A. Carina. C-A-R-I-N-A. Where the trachea breaks into the left and right bronchus. This area right here. I think there's a better picture of that on the next page. Yeah, right here, carina. All right. Now, the anatomy or the orientation of the right and left bronchus is important to understand. So you will notice that one stays a little bit more vertical and one makes its way to the left. All right? So there may be a question that will say, if you were to aspirate some type of foreign body, which way will it go?
The right.
Okay. The path of least resistance, because this is more vertical. Foreign bodies will make its way down to the right versus the left. Also, when you're looking at the main bronchus, you've got the right primary. Okay, it breaks into three secondary bronchi. Okay, so they break into three different branches. How many lobes in the lungs do we have on the right side?
Three.
We have three, and then how many do we have here?
Two.
Two on the left. All right, the neck. There will be some times when the doctor will order what's called a soft tissue neck. So when we're doing a soft tissue neck, we're not setting up our technical factors to look at C-spine or bone. We're trying to look at these soft tissue structures. Yes?
That's why I sent you that X-ray.
Yeah, but it was still, I'm sorry, it was still done poorly.
Well,
No, I'm just saying.
I didn't do it.
Yeah, well, the X-ray that Kristen's talking about, she sent me a picture of a child that was getting an X-ray done. And I was kind of critical about it because when they opened up the light field, it went from here all the way down to the belly, literally. I'm like, what the heck are they, right? I was like, what are they doing? I said, are they shooting a chest or are they shooting an abdomen? She goes, no, they're shooting a neck. I'm like, what? Yeah, her son.
Yeah, right? I would've been like, are you gonna call me that?
You better get a lawyer.
Yeah, so there were some other issues with that. And yeah, she couldn't get the exposure going, and it was because she didn't have a cassette in the Bucky. And I think you made her nervous.
I did.
Yeah.
You're critiquing her or what?
Oh, so you already knew stuff.
Yes.
Yeah.
You were one of those.
Yeah, it was a shock. So again, the order that they will make is a soft tissue neck, and we're looking at the soft tissue structures of the neck. So here we are looking. First one is here is A. Okay, it's harder to see in an AP projection because it's superimposed on the spinal column, a C-spine. The better view in analyzing this area would be a lateral. So here we have A. Okay, A is going to be what?
Trachea.
It's going to be the trachea. And how do we know that's the trachea?
Because it's in the front, right?
Because it's filled with air.
Oh.
Yeah, it is the front,
Right.
okay? It is the front. So we can see the lining of the trachea because it's air-filled. Okay? And right in the back of the trachea is, what are we going to find there?
The esophagus.
Is the esophagus, okay? So in a lateral neck, you're going to see the air-filled trachea. C is the area of the thyroid gland, and then right below that, okay, it's not considered part of the neck, it's part of the mediastinal structure, is where you're going to find the region of the thymus.
Are they gonna give them something to drink and then get the X-ray done
For,
for seeing the soft tissue or something?
not necessarily, not necessarily. When we're doing a neck study, it would be a study of the esophagus, if they're drinking the contrast. Then we're evaluating the esophagus, not the trachea.
For these, are they suspending respirations when you take
They
them?
are suspending respiration.
But there's still air in the.
Yes, there's still air trapped in there. You can't completely expel it. It stays in the tract. Okay, any questions here? And what's that structure up here, right above A?
Thyroid bone.
Hyoid bone, okay, hyoid. All right, secondary bronchi. So now it breaks into the right and you have the left. On the right we said there's 3 of them. On the left there's going to be 2 in relation to the number of lobes in the lungs. At the terminal end of the bronchi, they're going to break out into smaller branches, right?
Mhm.
And at the end of these bronchioles is where you're going to find the unit for respiration, are your air sacs or the alveoli. I'm not going to spend too much time because you guys are smart and you know this. Okay, axial image of a heart and the lungs at the level of T7. What's T7?
Thoracic vertebrae.
Is what? In relation to area, when we're talking
That's
about
where
chest
the TR
area, this
goes?
is your mid-thorax. So this is a sectional cut at T7. Again, being familiar with the structures, look at where the heart is located. Okay. The heart is located anteriorly, yes?
Mhm.
All right. But it's in the mid-thorax, so although it's located anteriorly, it is still quite a distance from the sides. And it is closer to where? It's a lot closer to the left side. Okay. This is why when we're doing chest x-rays, there are 2 views that we do. The first one is going to be, is it AP or PA?
PA.
PA. That means face or chest towards the image receptor, right? Why?
Because the magnification of the heart.
Okay, look at the heart orientation. This is going to put the heart, if you're doing a PA like so, it puts the heart closest to the image receptor to avoid any type of magnification. Now, how about a lateral? Are we going to do a right lateral or are we going to do a left lateral?
Left lateral.
Left lateral because it places the apex of the heart closest to the image receptor when you're doing a left lateral. Okay? All right, any questions here? And then simply, now what they're doing here is they're showing you the division of the lungs. You have your 3 lobes on the right, you've got your 2 lobes on the left divided by your fissures. Okay? So here we have the lungs. You have, it's broken down again, you have 3 lobes on the right. The very top is your superior, middle is middle, and the inferior is inferior. Okay, so superior, middle, and inferior lobe. Whereas the left only has a superior and an inferior lobe. Each of the lobes are divided or segmented by what's known as fissures. Okay. On the right, you have the horizontal fissure that divides it from your superior and middle. Is your horizontal. And the division between your middle and your inferior is your oblique fissure. And on the left side, there is no middle, it's just an oblique fissure. Now what they're doing here is, you guys notice that there's these extra dotted lines here, right? These are also your fissures in a lateral view. So when you're placing your patient in a left lateral, you're going to see this line going down the lung. It almost looks like there's fluid in there. Because we're doing a left lateral, the left lung is going to be closest to the image receptor. So you're going to see a line coming down the lung, which is the oblique fissure of the left. You won't see the other fissures here normally because the right lung is going to be furthest away from the image receptor, so you won't see these fissures on a lateral chest x-ray. The one that you will see is this left oblique fissure on a left lateral chest. Okay? Now the lungs. The lungs have a protective covering. This is known as the pleura, and it's a double-walled. The covering is the inner layer. The inner covering is known as your visceral pleura. Your visceral pleura. And then the outer is going to be your parietal pleura. Inner is visceral, outer is parietal. And in between is the pleural cavity. Filled with a lubricious type of solution that minimizes any friction when you're breathing. Now, before I continue, if there was perforation, if there was a break in the pleura, several things can happen. Okay, and we'll talk about this. I'll spend a little bit more time with this when we discuss pathology. But this is what happens. You have your outside atmospheric air, and then you have your internal air within your pleural cavity. Within your thoracic cavity. Okay? So if we were to damage this outer parietal, okay, because the air is stronger on the outside, if there was a break here on the okay, if there was a break on the outer, because the air is stronger on atmospheric air is stronger on the inside, air comes into the pleural cavity. What is that known as? It's called
atelectasis, or
it's called pneumothorax. Have you heard that term before? Pneumothorax. Okay, that's air in the pleural cavity. Now, because the atmospheric air is stronger on the outside, the air coming in is going to cause the lung to collapse. Okay, that's known as atelectasis. So don't confuse those two terms. You hear pneumothorax and you hear atelectasis. Pneumothorax is just air, it's air in the pleural cavity, but it results in a collapsed lung, which is atelectasis. Okay, I can't.